Hello, and welcome to Gifted Unleashed, where we talk about the gifted and twice exceptional brain and how it affects our thinking and experience of the world differently. There are a lot of stereotypes and stigma around the term giftedness, and I'm here to challenge those. I'm here to raise awareness and to have a conversation around the topic of what it means to be a gifted and twice exceptional adult. Common experience among gifted folks is that they feel out of place. They don't quite fit in. They're too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, too overexcitable, and too deep thinkers of the world and about themselves. So if you have been called too much about anything, this show is for you. I'm Nadja. I'm too loud, too colorful, too bubbly, too bossy, and I love to talk too much. So welcome to my world. I'm so happy you're here. Hello! Today we have Gloria Jensen on the podcast. Gloria and we met at the Zen conference in 2023 and we just hit it off, and I had to get her on the podcast because Gloria is a coach and an energy healer specializing in supporting highly sensitive and gifted adults. She is the founder of Gifted Interview, published on her blog to demystify and inspire and thrive at being gifted. Her approach is multicultural at the crossroads of several European countries and now also the United States. She helps neurodivergent people deal with their intense minds and emotions, develop deep self-knowledge of their user's manual to create a fulfilling and serene life. So without further ado, here's Gloria. Welcome, Gloria. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Nadja. Me too.
Yeah, and it was so amazing to get to know you and meet you at Sang last year. So that's where we connected. And we even shared a space for the conference. And I really got to know you and really appreciate you. And I'm really a fan. And I'm so excited to have you here today and share your story.
Yes, it was such a beautiful encounter for me too, because it was my first Sang and sharing that with you, and like such a beautiful 2-3 days. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was short, but really, really great. Yeah, it was also my first Sang conference, and it was really, really great to meet you, but also everybody else at Sang. So let's start with you. I mean, the topic of giftedness, and maybe people can already hear a little bit. You are European. How did you learn about your giftedness?
So later in life, because I didn't grow up like, I guess from people who grew up in America, it's a bit more common to do testing at an early age. So what I've heard from Americans, it's usually they know they're gifted, even though they might not know what it means exactly. I grew up in France, where at least maybe where I grew up, and it wasn't such a topic. So I didn't hear about it. And it was more like, I can remember as a teenager, you would have these stereotypes of gifted is a math genius, like the classical, someone who is super smart, maybe not super social, and like something that doesn't live in my reality. And it's really later in life. I can't even remember, like I was already working after maybe 26, 27, or even a bit later. I heard about it actually through a friend of my mother whose son was identified as being gifted. And as she told her a bit the journey with her son, and it's a very good friend for my mom, and as she heard her speaking about a few things, she was like, maybe I want to tell to Gloria about it. And I was at that time living in England, and we met. She gave me a book, a French book, which is really like a classic in this topic. And I was like, okay. But she told me more about the sensitive part, like the emotional part, where she could recognize me and the challenges I had as a child and teenager, and even after as an adult. And as she gave me that book, I was like, okay. And I started reading the book, and I had such a weird or special relationship to the book, because on one side, I was like, wow, this is speaking to me so much, like typically all the testimonials, and you feel understood, and you're like, wow, it's a relief. And at the same time, I had a lot of anger, almost against my mom, because like, why did you give me this thing? Like, I'm not gifted. Like all the smart part that you imagine of being gifted. I felt very alone actually with the topic, because at that time, I didn't do the job I am now doing as a coach. I wasn't so connected online, so I was really not aware of all the resources that we have now today. We have much more online. You just type around giftedness and you will find so many resources. So that was really I felt very alone, and I felt like I cannot be arrogant and pretend to be gifted. Yes, I can recognize the emotional side and some of the challenges, but the smart side, the intelligence, was like, I'm not special. And that's why I was almost reading a bit the book, and then I was putting it by side. And then I read again, like read this back and forth. And then until I thought, okay, let's find professionals to speak to and not just stay with a book by myself. And, I wouldn't speak to anyone about it, because really it's a quite uncomfortable topic when you just heard about it and you have really all the cliches and stereotypes. And I believe for also part, I was going to say for many, I can't say that, but it's like, I can recognize myself, some of the traits, but am I that smart? Or that's at least the representation we have. And for many, it's really like a break, on your own journey. You're like, well, no, you go back and forth. And then I was like, okay, let's meet a professional who does the test. And at that time, I didn't know that one thing is to be able to do the test, and one thing is to be a professional who really knows about giftedness. And the first encounter I had was not super good. I didn't feel comfortable with the person. Yeah, just what I brought. And also because at that time I had done so much self-development work that I didn't bring some of the challenges that many professionals who might just be, like, I would say, superficially trained on the topic would identify, okay, you're only gifted. Before they decide to do the test with you, they do a pre-assessment, and I didn't fall in I would say, the more negative side that is associated with giftedness, because I had done a lot of work on myself. I had changed profession. I had done a lot of emotional work. So I felt like kind of the more negative side, I was dealing better with it. So the person was kind of a bit, she was like, well, maybe it's better to just work on the themes that come with giftedness. Maybe let's see for the test. And just like, I didn't feel understood at all. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that with this person. And I kept on searching. And then I found someone who also, and that was the difference, who really knows about giftedness. He's training professionals about this topic. He's doing conferences in many different countries. He was not just, actually that's not even his job, doing tests. He was really informing people about what it means to be gifted. And I had a quick chat with him, and I jumped, which is a bit crazy. I decided to train myself into really the topic of supporting gifted adults. So at that time, I was trained as a coach, and I was like, okay, if I'm not gifted, great, I will have another specialty, something where I can help other people. And if I am, then it's the best way to enter in the topic. So it might sound weird for some people. I really jumped like in the big ocean, I would say, and not just tiptoe and see if I want to go in. But I guess it was just the sense, the intuition of this person knows what he's talking about. And I really want to have the opportunity to dive deep, understand, ask all the questions I have, benefit from real professional, great support. And this training was over 3 days. And oh my God, that was, whoa, so many things came up during these 3 days, because of course it was to support other gifted adults. But first, when you receive information, you receive it also for yourself. And also, I think as a professional, whether you are a coach, a psychologist, you always need to do the work for yourself to then be also able to support other people. So I embarked on the journey. Really, it was super emotional. Like, I remember crying in the evening about everything that came up through. It was a playground, a beautiful playground with all the people who were attending also the training were gifted. So some had already done the test. I really could go in with all my questions. And that was, I think, the starting point for me to like, okay, my body reacted and said to me, you are gifted. Like I could start to integrate in my cells what it means, because it was really not the stereotypes anymore. It was like having a deep understanding. And then after this, I was like, okay, this is too big, too huge. I want this to be known by as many people as possible, as when you discover that topic and you see the impact it has in your life, and I guess for you, for creating this podcast, that's probably one of the reasons.
Same, exactly, same, yes.
So I was like, okay, now I need to talk about this, but because your clients are going to ask about the test, the IQ test, I want to still do it for myself because I need to know what it is. I need to be able to guide people through that. So you need to do it. So then I found a professional where I felt that time better. And I did the test. But for me, I did the test without doing the test. It's because I already had this validation through the training I had done. I was like, for me, my body answered already. But I want to, and I did the test, like trying to understand how it is, the kind of questions. I was kind of more observing the test than really doing it. And it was kind of fun. And sometimes like I had a very weird way of how I did it, but whatever. So I did the test and then I go back to have the results. And the person said, well, you have a heterogeneous IQ, so I cannot really give you an answer. And oh my God, I fall, I think, I don't know, like falling from, I don't know, 50 floor building. Like I crashed. I cried so much during that feedback session. And I think she was a bit surprised as well by my reaction. And she was like, I just cannot make a statement. And for me, I was like, whoa, having lived with a few months with the body knowing. And then I was like, oh, and the test is unclear. And that was really so emotional. It was a journey then for me to say, okay, come to the place of, okay, maybe I'm not gifted. I don't know. Like I, again, journeyed a bit by myself with it. Also probably because of maybe, I don't know if it was the shame or like all the emotions that came up with, so you thought you were, now the test didn't validate kind of the official validation. What do I do now with that? And I really went on a journey to, okay. And it's fun because I came to the point where I was like, okay, maybe you are not, but this topic is still too important. You still need to talk about it. And that's really fun because I was like, okay, even though you don't know for yourself, like you need to talk about it. And then I went back actually to the person who trained me and then he told me, but do you remember that section of the training where I told you and I tell to everyone that when the results are not homogeneous and there is heterogeneity, that's where, depending on the professional you have, they will dare or not to make the move. And that's like the gray zone where it really depends on the professional you have in front of you. And it's fun because at that time he told me, it's perfect. You've made the experience that some of your client will do, and you will be able to hold this process on the emotional side. You will be able to explain it to them. And like, it's great. And that was like, okay, yes. And from that point, I really started also to dig deeper into like the test, the IQ test. How does it work? What are the limits? What can have an impact? And it's fun because that happened really many years ago now. And to make it short, then I was like, okay, I still want to talk about that topic. And I had my own digestion of everything that happened. And I had then really focused on supporting gifted adults. And I guess my journey also went forth with every client I helped with. I had then groups also of gifted and talented women. And of course, client brought the same similar situations. And also my clients really helped me in that journey also for myself, until a point where now today, if I make a big jump to where I am today, and for people who might have had or will have these experiences, really having that understanding that the IQ test is one thing. First, it wasn't created to identify giftedness. That being gifted is hardly summarized by the IQ test, and that you can fail, into brackets, the IQ test and still be gifted. And now I am fully at peace. Now it's not a question anymore for me. But it really was a process, and it took time. And as you can imagine, it was an emotional roller coaster. But again, it's like when you have this heterogeneity, it's how the professional responds to it that can have a huge impact.
Oh, it resonates so much with me, your story, because I had a similar experience, right? Where I, you know, came across this topic, learned about it, jumped into podcasting because I just wanted to get all the knowledge from the experts and people working in the space and just hit record doing this podcast. And then through the ADHD diagnosis, got the opportunity to do an IQ test. At that point, I was already warned in the community, be careful. And I was like, oh, but it's kind of like a self experiment. I want to do it so I know what it is and what it is about. And as you said, like a little self experiment. And I had a very, very similar experience. The person had no idea about, what it means to be gifted. She didn't even know the term twice exceptional, and so having a spiky profile. And yeah, so quote unquote, not gifted on the IQ score. And I said, well, if I have, ADHD and executive functioning issues, wouldn't that impair me taking this test? And yeah, and then there were other layers, I had eyesight issue at the time. The test is a German test. I'm Swiss. It's a different,
Oh, wow.
vocabulary, everything. So there were multiple layers. And as you said, like having this result come back and I'm like, oh, but can I still do a podcast about giftedness?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really understand, but at the time I was already in contact with Jen from Intergifted, and I reached out and I did an assessment with her. So not the quantitative, but the qualitative assessment. And really that was also more helpful for me to also see the profile of giftedness. Like it's more than just a number. You really understand, what it means and how you experience interact with the world. So it highly resonates with what you're saying. And when I talked to Paula Prober, she told me that all these levels of giftedness, mildly, moderately, highly, and she calls herself barely gifted. And I was like, oh, I embrace that, barely gifted. So so that's how I then got back on my feet and said, okay, I just call myself barely gifted and I can still, be in this space. And nobody except myself ever questioned it. Nobody tells you in this space, you're not welcome here.
Yeah. And it's so important because you mentioned so many things, and it's like for people to check, like, how is my eyesight? How is my hearing? How is exactly like the compensation effect, or like with ADHD or other twice exceptional characteristics, and all these things I also didn't know at all about it. Like it's really a learning process, if it's your language or not. As you said, the difference between Swiss German and German. Like I also have a very different perspective now because I know I did the test. There were questions she asked me I didn't even like. I was like, oh, I don't know, or like I really didn't do it seriously as well. So there are many things that after I understood. And also maybe it's interesting, for me, my vision also of giftedness has expanded. And I like Marie Rocamora, who talked also about the spiritual side, and also some others speak about it. And for me, it's so much more than the IQ. And also, of course, having worked now 5 years with gifted adults, I see what really means intelligence as being not at all about IQ. I see, like, it's sometimes hard to describe, but I see where is the giftedness in them. And it's very different from person to person. So even when you say highly profoundly gifted, they experience different things as gifted. But for me, it's not even more a scale, of course, that plays also a role, but it's more not thinking vertically, but more horizontally. Like, what makes you be gifted? And maybe you are diving super deep and fast and in spirituality and having developed very different levels of consciousness, having access to a different reality. Maybe it's in science, what would be more stereotypically associated with giftedness. And so it's like really, it's a journey to go and meet yourself and how it's expressed for you.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's how you support your clients, right? You take these clients or your clients on this journey of self-discovery and also this how to deal with the intense emotions and how, I think a lot of gifted people, I think you mentioned that they're disconnected or overwhelmed by their own emotions. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, because we're like working and like building my experience. I was like, okay, what are the biggest challenge for gifted people in their relationship with themselves? And of course, that has an impact on the relationship with the world. And for me, like it's the intensity and complexity of their mental and emotional life. And, often we say like, oh, I don't know how to put my brain off. I don't know how to stop thinking. I feel everything so deeply and it's sometimes overwhelming. I often like to say it's okay, how you operate, it's not possible to change that. You will always have a probably quicker, more like the rainforest mind, because you already talked about polar, and that's like, yes, I cannot change you in the sense of you will feel things more deeply. You will have a different experience than other people who don't have this high level of sensitivity and that experience of the world. But you can change like how you deal with that. And once you can also validate yourself and adapting more to your needs. And on the emotional side, what I see is usually, two main behaviors is either I disconnect because it's just too much. And I can so understand that behavior because if you've never learned to deal with what's happening inside and it's super intense, let's better disconnect because it's like I don't know what to do with it. It's too much. So let's just not feel anymore and just live in my brain and that's fine. And if you've never learned, like it's totally understandable. And the other side is I'm like almost it feels like I'm too connected, or it feels like this overwhelm that can come through the emotions. And in both sides, it's actually you try to control, which might sound weird because, of course, when you're disconnected, okay, I'm controlling, I'm just like off, kind of. But also when you're overwhelmed, there is a trying to control. You are not really making space for what you're feeling and supporting it, like going with your emotions. And again, I'm saying that if you've never learned it, it's normal that you don't know how to do it. Like I've learned it. I think that's probably also one of the biggest work on myself I've done, and still spend time daily or weekly on how am I feeling? What's exactly happening? What's the trigger? And making space and now really addressing what's happening, because emotions, like we are human beings, so that's part of everyday life. And I will always feel things more deeply, intensely. Just maybe sometimes listening, you could listen to this podcast or read a book and start crying and see a movie. And it's like, okay, one side is like all the, we would say, positive or at least enjoyable emotions. And then it's like, okay, how do I deal with, and I like to not frame them as negative because it's like every emotion informs you, gives you a message. It's like, how do I deal with the part that none of us really want to feel? Like we don't like to suffer. Like who wants to, oh, I would love to be sad. I would love to be angry. Well, I understand. No, but if this emotion is coming up, it's there to really give you a message. And that's where I focus a lot, is because it's such a big challenge, being gifted, your brain is so present and you love also to think. There is also that part, you love to think, to learn, to hear, to be challenged, to imagine. And at the same time, it's like, can you also move in your life with your body? Like, what is your body telling you about the situation? And the emotion for me is one of the ideal way also to connect to the body. And maybe it starts just with sensation, because especially when we haven't worked on emotion, it's hard to sometimes just, you can say, I feel bad, I feel good, but you might not have the vocabulary yet. You can start also just with your sensation, like, well, I feel like, I don't know, I feel oppression in my chest, or I have belly pain, or what's happening. So really reconnecting gifted people with their body, because that's where I would say you can like really go in all your power and your potential when you have this connection between your mind and your body. Again, it's normal if like today you might not have it, but if I can invite people to dig deeper, there is a lot of treasures there also to know more about yourself.
Oh, thank you for sharing this. And also, to again amplify this message of, a lot of gifted people are stuck in their heads, but we need to get down into the body and feel the body and feel the emotions. And I think because we're cognitively fast, usually, we try to think our way through problems or think our way out of emotions, or you know also sometimes, yeah,
100%.
or you go to therapy and you're like, oh, I understand where the problem lies, but you haven't really integrated it, right? It really needs this process through the body.
Yes. And here you are phrasing a solution that I also love always to really emphasize is when you feel stuck in your self-actualization journey and you say exactly what Nadja said, like, I know, I've understood, but it's not changing. It's like you now have one solution, and you cannot, for me at least, I don't see healing and transformation, real transformation, if you don't connect to your body. So if you want to integrate what you now know or understood, you need to work on a body level. And that's at least my way. It's like connecting to what really it feels like. And also because, the gifted journey might bring up many things of, oh, when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, that's what happened. I felt shame, I felt guilty, I felt too much, and all these things. You can process them intellectually. I'm just trying to make it more concrete with an example and understand. And what it would mean to process it with the body is, wow, how did I feel at that time? Maybe you are going to need to cry. Maybe you need to transform that emotional state through your creativity. Maybe you're going to sing a song, do a painting, go in nature, have a walk, and just reconnect to that child you were or to that experience. That's what I mean, at least to just give some concrete examples with, like connecting to the feeling attached to the experience.
And where is then the line that what you do as a coach and therapy? Because I think now you really brushed there is a line, right?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I will be clear. So I am trained as a coach. I'm not a therapist, but I've done so many other training, like beyond coaching, to really learn about emotions and support people with emotions. And it's true that the classical coaching training usually doesn't involve all the emotional work. It's more like mindset work, belief work, so more working on with the mind. But I at some point saw that and also I was interested in more. I saw that it's especially for gifted people, as we described just before, it's that you can understand, but the change doesn't happen. And also seeing that in my journey, my emotions were a big part of them. So that's why I bring also the topic of emotions. And I don't work as a therapist on emotion. If I make it very simple and basic, I say to people, we don't need to dig into the past, analyze, maybe as you would do it in therapy. And maybe that's what you need, like really you need to know. But the emotional work I do is really just releasing the emotion. We don't need to go and tell the story again, understand everything. You might not even know exactly what happened. We just need to connect to how does my body feel? What's the emotion and how can I release it? And there, I'm not doing coaching anymore. I can do, well, you could have it also with some coaching, but like really energy work. I do it through art. There you could say art therapy as well, yes. Even though it's not as a therapist, I help people release emotions and emotional states that are stuck through art. I do it through, which is energy work. And I also do it like sometimes during the session, guiding people in their body, and whether it's through visualization or speaking to the parts of themselves that are coming up with the situation, which again, like, yes, I see. And for people who have experienced their connection with therapy. So I don't have a straight line between coaching and therapy, just because I've learned different tools and approaches, and I just use what the client needs.
But obviously, if you see that a person needs classical, more profound gifted therapy, you would probably refer them, right?
100%. And I always say, okay, that's I'm very clear with and honest with people. I'm like, the situation you are bringing, I know we can work on it through what I can bring you. That would be more with a therapist. Or if it's a heavy trauma, for example, and they need to talk about it, go through it. But really, like, I see it working very smoothly with my clients. I just share them, they understand, and then we already, through all the tools I bring, the work I do is deep. I remember also doing like a masterclass, and someone said, well, it's not just superficial work. I go deep. That's why also sometimes you could reconnect also to therapy. I would say I don't really care about, is it coaching, is it therapy? I just care about, is it effective and is it helping people? And do I feel comfortable, of course, myself to guide people through it? If not, then I'm going to send them somewhere else where it's more appropriate.
And you just shared as well, like, it is hard work, right? It is deep. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? It's this, again, you need to go through it. Just cognitively understanding the concept of like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to release, my emotions and the energy. But it's work, and it,
Yeah.
and yeah.
It is real work, deep work, like it's challenging. I don't know if I try at least to make it as still enjoyable. It might sound weird, but bring either lightness, joy, or for me, and that's where I work around emotions, even difficult emotion. You can face them with a smile, with compassion. We don't have to be like in something very difficult, hard. We can, in the approach and how we work on it, have this lighter, hopeful touch in moving through it. Because again, like what we would see like as very negative state, for me they are not negative. They are just a process of doing the work, so that, like, going through the shadows so that you get to the gift and what is really there for you.
And to empower them, right, to live to their fullest self. And this self-knowledge, self-understanding is really the basis. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, maybe yourself included, growing up not knowing about giftedness, or knowing about giftedness but not really what it means, and you get this constant negative feedback from the world of like, your path is not the correct one, you should be doing this, and why won't you right? And just understanding that your path is actually the right one that you're on.
Yeah, 100%.
I just wanted to ask you, so you said in the beginning that when you learned about your giftedness that you wanted to share this with the world, and you shared your story of, embracing coaching and straight jumped into gifted coaching, but you're also doing other things, right? Would you like to share what else you do and how you spread the word of giftedness?
So I like one resource, and really like one, like we give, as you are doing, free resources so that people can already move. I think there is already a lot on our free side. And then of course, if you want transformation in your life, like, you will need to invest and get professional support. But already on the free side, because as you've heard my journey, I felt quite alone and with many questions, and not willing to be kind of, and that was my perspective, but arrogant as seeing myself as gifted. I created a blog It's very simple. It's like you go on my name, Gloria Jensen, and then to the blog section. And here you have stories of gifted adults. I was like, I want to hear gifted adult stories, a bit like what you asked me and what you're doing at the beginning of the podcast. And I really like super specific questions about how do they live it personally, professionally? How was their experience of the test? What does gifted mean for them? And digging into their personal stories, because that's what people can relate to and can like feel an echo to who they are. And I felt it's for many people who are wondering if they're gifted or not, it's a gentle way to enter in the topic and like kind of move with the topic step by step and see that there is a variety, because that was important for me. I didn't know at that time when I started my journey, like you can be gifted in so many different ways. So, and you have like I interview gifted professionals, but also gifted people whom it's not their work topic. They just have their own journey with their giftedness, so that people don't associate, oh, you need to be professional to be happy and fulfilled. And that's like how like I've been doing for many years to share their stories. And even people who are and know they are gifted, it helps them because they say, of course, you have an echo to how you are. And it's always useful to either hear or read people sharing your inner experience. It helps you validate it. That's the wonderful part. And I guess for many listeners of your podcast, it's what they are experiencing, you know, the validation that comes from, oh, I'm not the only one feeling that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the reason for this podcast, was just, to explore why people go into the gifted professional side. But usually if you work in the professional field, most probably you have a gifted story. And yeah.
Yeah. That's also like to make a side note if people are still wondering. And that was also my conclusion, is if you are so interested in giftedness, you dig deeper, even though you go away from the topic, but you go back to it, you go to conferences, you read about it. Like at some point when someone is, and even for your professional journey, I'm going to say the same, when you are super interested by a topic and you want to know more and more and more, there is something there for you. It's impossible. Like if you just heard once about giftedness, read, I don't know, an article, and you're like, oh yes, I am gifted, and then you forget about the topic, well, I don't know if it's really relevant for you. But if you are here listening to one podcast after the other, reading one book after the other, like it's not a coincidence.
Yeah. And I would like to say also that there's no gate. You don't need to show the IQ test score at the entrance to this podcast, to the communities. You can really enter freely and you are embraced in the space. And that I felt, me entering, everybody was very generous with their resources, with knowledge. I felt really embraced. And if you go into a space where you don't feel embraced, then it's the space, it's not you.
Yeah, and it's so important that you emphasize that. I think it's a permission, like authorization for many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're embarking into a new journey. And I think you would like to ask people to come and join you. So please share your new
Yes.
endeavor, and where can people contact you, and for what are they signing up?
So first, just my website, gloriajensen.com, is like a perfect way to contact me. But then also, I know you are going to put the links to all my social media and so on. So I'm creating a podcast that is called The Inner Space, because that's for me where also I help mostly people, is in their inner space, what's happening inside of them emotionally, mentally, so that then once we've done the work, they can like go into the world and put the actions in place that are supported by their inner world. And I'm creating a podcast where, of course, I will share my own experiences, my own stories, but also have guests, and not professional guests, but you can be a guest, which means you can receive a free coaching that is recorded, so that you have first like solutions to your problems and also help others moving through their journey. And like there are three main pillars. First, I would say if the interview resonated with you, then I might be the right person for you, because I really do not believe like every coach is for everyone. Like you need to have a resonance with the person's words or perspective. So if you have that, then there is a higher possibility that the person will have an impact and really help you in your transformation. So I would say if people resonate with what I've shared and they want to benefit from a session, it can be anonymous. So there is they can decide, and it's really just audio. And it's like there are 3 main pillars. I help really people around self-knowledge. As you said, that's the fundament. So knowing themselves better. For that, I also use human design. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, Nadja. Never. It's amazing. I love this. Human design is helping you get your user's manual, like understanding how your energy works, how your intuition works, like how do you take decisions. It's an amazing tool. I've used so many tools like the MBTI, process communication, the Enneagram, like there are so many things. And for me, that's the tool where I'm like, whoa, that's very relevant because I've trained myself into it. I'm using it with my clients for more than 2 years now, and I see how helpful it is for them. So I use, whether it's like my knowledge about high sensitivity, about giftedness, about human design, I use it so that people can understand a bit more how they operate, know more about themselves, because I always say like from self-knowledge emerges direction. And direction is the 3rd pillar, which is creating, like orienting yourself, guiding yourself in your life. Of course, professionally is a big part because work is a big part of our life. So creating a professional project, whether it's your career or your business, that is aligned with who you are. So then I go back to the 1st pillar, which is about self-knowledge. And the second pillar in the middle is really about that self-mastery work around your emotions and the mental part. So basically it's like know yourself, do the inner work, because of course you can know, okay, that's the path, but then you start thinking, am I good enough to do it? Or will I succeed? Or will people want to embark on that journey with me? And then it's like, so that's why you can have, I don't know, holes, a big cascade, fire, whatever going on your path. So it's like, let's address the emotional and mental side of taking your path. And also as a gifted person, depending on the experience you've had, if you realize, okay, I'm gifted, and I'm like, oh, now I realize all my gifts in, I don't know, a certain area of my life. I want it to be my professional path. And then all these maybe also traumatic or stories that I've experienced come up. And then I'm like, oh, who am I to do that? I'm like, that needs to be addressed so that you really embark on a journey that is aligned with who you are. So if people feel that's an approach, a methodology that speaks to them, then they're super welcome. We'll have the link, so they just have to complete a form. I ask a few questions to prepare the session, and then they hop on and we do the recording, and then they help themselves and others through that session.
So it's a win-win-win. So
yes.
Amazing. And that link, they can go to your Gloria Jensen coaching, or can you say the link again?
The best way I would say is I've sent you the link, so you can put it so they access directly the form. I have it also as my link in bio in my Instagram account. So probably the best is in the show notes, so they have direct access to it and I don't get lost anywhere.
Exactly. We will put all the links in the show notes, also to your coaching services, obviously, and your website, and so they can navigate and find everything. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Something you wish people knew, something you wish you knew earlier in your journey?
I believe for me, it's really giving them the hope, I was going to say motivation, but it's not even the right word, the longing they have inside to really create a life that is fulfilling and where they're like, wow, I'm happy every day to wake up. It's so worth it. Like, I know it's not easy depending on our story and our education. We might have to face bigger or smaller obstacles, but it's like your life is so much worth. And that was my learning through my journey, is like, don't waste it being someone else, doing something that is not you. Like, really, your heart, you will feel so much peace and serenity in your heart, in your soul, if you are on the path that is you. And there you will find so much strength as well, because you are connected to that deeper mission and purpose in you. And you're like, okay, I'm going to face my fears because that's so important. That's what I'm going to contribute to the world. So please, if you are not already on that journey, embark. And if you are on that, keep doing the work. Like your happiness and your contribution is so much worth for you and for others. We need you.
Oh, yes, we need you all. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here, Gloria. And I'm so excited to be able to share this, recording with the world. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Nadja. Huge gratitude for making that space for me, and really congrats also for your podcast, because I know many people benefit from it.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and you learned something new. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. And if you feel like somebody else that you know could profit from this, please send them a link to this show. And if you want to learn more, you find everything at giftedunleashed.com. And you can also subscribe to the newsletter there, so you will always be up to date for new things that are coming. And all the information that we mentioned today in the episode will be on the show notes for the episode. So everything is right there for you. And with that said, I wish you a wonderful day, and I see you next time. Bye.